Hello and welcome to the premiere of Girls Got Game, the newest show on Hitting the Field Network. I'm your host, Franki Noble, and today we'll be talking about women in the Summer Olympics, NBA and NHL Championships, and a certain NHL team. So stay tuned because Girls Got Game starts right now. Welcome back to Girls Got Game. I'm here with Nick Cohen and Anya Garibashvily to talk about women in the Summer Olympics. How are you guys doing?
I'm super excited to talk about women in the Olympics.
I am as well, yeah.
I mean, the GOATs of the Olympics this year, right?
Right.
I mean, out of 126 medals for the U.S., they got 67, the women, this year. Pretty impressive. So first, let's start with the GOAT, I'd say, Katie Ledecky. 14 medals overall, 9 gold medals, 2 gold medals this summer. I mean, how impressive is that?
Extremely.
Just out of the water.
She, like we were saying, she literally looks like she's in the pool alone when she's swimming. She's going faster than everyone. She's swimming, she's swimming, she's swimming. It is so impressive. I mean, she holds the top 20 times for the 1500 meter. Her top speed is 15 minutes, 20 seconds. I mean, she's so impressive. It's unbelievable. She keeps going. She started in 2012. So she's kind of a vet at this point. I mean, and she's a decorated vet, you can say. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's just impressive for how long she's been in the game and how she, after time and time again, proves it, especially considering the fact that she has revealed that she has POTS, which is a neurological condition that affects your heart rate, your endurance, your fatigue levels. And the fact that she is on top of the 1500 meter in swimming with this condition that does inhibit her is just insane, and just goes to show that she has the strength, passion, and motivation to just be the best no matter what.
I mean, we were talking about this. You never would have thought she had POTS. She doesn't let it stop her at all, in the water, outside of the water. Like, you never would have known. I think it's so impressive. Nick?
And like, for anyone who doesn't realize how long 1500 meters is, I mean, that's like swimming your absolute fastest times 10 for 15 minutes or longer.
15 minutes in the pool, and like you're holding your breath, you're swimming, you're exerting so much energy, and you're just going for 15 minutes. I couldn't imagine
right,
swimming
and
for 15
imagine you're
minutes.
in lane 1 or lane 8 when all the water from the people in the middle is like coming back at you, trying to push you towards the wall, and you have to fight against that too. I don't know how these athletes do that, and then to win, to have the top 20 fastest times ever.
20. It's just Katie Ledecky, Katie Ledecky, Katie Ledecky.
20
There's
times.
no one that beats that. Maybe Michael Phelps, but we're not talking about Michael Phelps. No.
But she would be the equivalent.
Yeah, even better, I'll say.
Okay.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
But switching to another sport, track and field. Nick, you have our track athlete.
I do. So you've probably heard quite a bit about her, Sha'Carri Richardson. She went famous in college at LSU when she was just destroying people at the collegiate national level. And then she entered the Olympics. She was unable to compete in the last Olympics, but this year she made her debut, Olympic debut, and she just killed it. I mean, as part of the women's 4x100 relay team, where basically every athlete in there runs 25 meters.
100 meters. In total, they run 400.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's my bad. They won gold. They destroyed everyone else. And then in her single event, she won silver. And so she walked away with 2 medals. And then, like, she has this signature where she, as she's passing someone, she looks over at them. And that's just so, like, cold. But she wins, so she is like, she can do that.
She walks the walk and talks the talk.
You can be as cocky as you want if you deliver.
Exactly.
And you're running from 4th place to 1st place, looking over, knowing you're going to get that gold.
Yeah.
I don't blame
Also,
her.
fun fact, she's a Florida resident.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Go Florida.
Yeah.
I mean,
Love that.
pretty fun. Now, switching to the latter half of track and field, you have our field athlete.
Yes, I have Tara Davis-Woodall. You've probably seen her on Instagram or even on YouTube with her husband, Hunter Woodall, who's a Paralympian, who is competing sometime soon in Paris in the Paralympics. But she won her first medal after coming back to the Olympics. Her debut was 2020 Tokyo. But this time, she brought home the gold. She brought home gold in long jump with 7.1 meters as her score, which in feet is a little under 24 feet. Imagine, she's jumping off from 1 foot and jumps over 24 feet into a sand pit. And it is just mind-blowing. She's super vocal and vulnerable about her experience as an Olympian. Her moment after 100-meter hurdles that she also competed in, she ran up to Hunter and was like, this was the hardest race of my life. And you could see the payoff in the pit as she just falls back into it in long jump. So it was amazing to watch.
It's so amazing to watch. And these are sports that the normal person wouldn't watch just on a, say, random day in November. You're not going to turn on your TV and be like, let me watch.
And that's why the Olympics are so special.
It's so special because I think swimming is a big sport. People watch swimming, but who's going to watch a long jump?
I don't know many people who do.
Not many people. Who's going to watch a 100-meter?
Right, like the most common sports that are in the Olympics are soccer and basketball, like just to the everyday American. And so those are still very important, and the women still dominated in that this year. But like these specialized sports, like you were saying, like that's what people tune into the Olympics every 4 years, and then obviously Winter Olympics. But that's why people love the Olympics.
But it's incredible. How many times did you hear the name Sha'Carri Richardson this summer? Like, I think she was one of the most high expectations coming into this Summer Olympics, and she dominated. And I just think it's so impressive that you have someone that's running and running and running. I wouldn't watch that on a normal day. I know you guys wouldn't, but watching it this summer was so impressive and so entertaining. I never thought I'd be like enthralled by watching someone run in a circle, but it was so entertaining.
Well, and it's like we've talked about 3 amazing female athletes, but that's not even all. Like we have a ton. Also, part of that track team, the 4x100, Gabby Thomas was talked about a lot.
Yes.
And then in gymnastics, obviously Simone Biles and Suni Lee. Like.
And these are people that are now household names.
Yeah.
And they're not even like these huge sports. And everybody knows these names. Obviously Simone Biles, everyone's known her name for years. But like just thinking that she's a gymnast.
Yeah.
Like who goes out and is like, let me go to a gymnastics meet? But she is like one of the most famous people and a GOAT. Like all of these women are so impressive. Everyone that we've talked about, everyone that we haven't talked about, everyone is just so impressive in their sport. And it's so entertaining to watch as fans and as just enjoyers of their sport.
Yeah, completely agree.
I mean, yeah, super impressive. Anything else to add?
I'm excited to see what they bring to the table next Olympics.
I was just gonna say it's coming to America in LA 2028. I would love to be there. We'll have to see about that. Traffic
Fingers
might be a
crossed we
little
get
bit
tickets.
crazy, right? Yeah. But yeah, I can't wait for that.
But yeah, that's all. So that's all the time we have to talk about women in the Summer Olympics. So stay tuned because we're going to talk about the NBA and NHL Championships.
Tyler Brown, right? It says in my notes you're an Oklahoma fan.
That is correct.
So let me ask you, bud. Is Texas back?
All right, I put on a brave face a lot, but this year, I'm really scared that they are, man. Okay, they just beat Alabama. They're gonna be top 4 in the rankings. And last year, they beat us 48-0.
Yeah.
It was humiliating. We're the Oklahoma Sooners. We were the best ever. We were talk of the town. We had Baker, Kyler, and Jalen 3 years in a row. And now, are we good? I don't know. We haven't won a national title since 2000. We're number 18, I think, and nothing matters, dude.
Sometimes we build up these walls thinking they're impenetrable. But sometimes you have to knock these walls down to build up bigger and stronger ones. And you got to be tough through that. It's hard being an Oklahoma fan at this time, but grass is always going to be greener on the other side of the hill, buddy.
Is it? I cannot live through a Texas national championship. I can't. I'll never recover.
You want to talk about Lincoln Riley?
What'd you just say to me?
Welcome back. I'm here with Andrew Greig and Jen Perez to talk about NBA and NHL championships. How are you guys doing?
Good, how about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to talk some championships from the summer. Andrew?
I'm doing good as well.
Awesome. So let's start with the NBA. So the Celtics won this year in 5 to take their 18th NBA championship with a victory of 106-86. Jan, what did you think about this?
I think the Celtics kind of dominated the whole series, to be honest with you. There were a lot of key players, a lot of key role players. They just had so much depth. I think they were overpowering for the Dallas Mavericks, honestly.
Speaking of key players, you chose a certain player that you think made the series. Who was that?
I chose Drew Holiday. For the first 2 games, Drew Holiday was the best player on the court. I think it was undeniable. Game 1, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists with a plus-minus of 20. He was killing it. Game 2 was the leading scorer for the Celtics with 26, 11, and 3. He was hooping. He really was.
No other way to put it.
Every night, yeah, he was just hooping. He was arguably the best defender on the court, besides Jaylen Brown. He was just doing good the entire series.
Yeah, speaking of Jaylen Brown, that's the player that I actually said made the series with a 21-point performance that included 8 rebounds and 6 assists in the Celtics' victory of Game 5 over the Dallas Mavericks. I think he is such an intelligent player. I think he's a playmaker, a game maker. However, it was a little controversial that he won the MVP. A lot of people thought Jason Tatum should have. He was the first player to lead an NBA championship with playoff scoring, rebounds, and assists and not win the MVP. However, I think Jaylen Brown did deserve it. I don't know about you. What do you think?
Well, to be fair, that doesn't really tell the story because yes, he was leading in all those categories, but as an example in points, his field goal percentage was terrible most of the series. Defensively, he was a liability on the court most of the time. Jaylen Brown was insane, especially he was defending Luka the entire series. Kept him at a below 40% field goal from just regularly from the field, and from the 3 below 30% with 5 turnovers. He locked down Luka the whole series. Jaylen Brown really earned them that title.
I agree, and I mean, thinking about it, I think having the Mavs as their opponent is really what led them to win because the Celtics have such a strong team and they were just able to dominate against the Mavericks. Yeah, there were some close games and the Mavericks took that one game, but I don't think there was any comparison between the two teams.
Yeah, no, the best player you could argue is Luka, but even then, the Celtics were just too much. They really were just too much, especially looking forward now. The team is kind of assembled for the next 3-4 years, so I think the Celtics are going to keep dominating for the next probably 4 or 5 years.
I absolutely agree. I mean, they dominated last year. Obviously, they didn't win, but they were pretty close to it. So I think it's really impressive. You said what led to their win this year?
The Celtics?
Yeah.
Honestly, it was just full depth and full, rotation of the roster. Porzingis was they won in 5, and Porzingis was out after the first game. So that really speaks volumes to how good this team is.
I agree.
Yeah, if I can chime in, I completely agree with you guys. I think that the Celtics are just the better overall team. And also, the Mavericks had the harder path to get there. I think the Celtics cruised. They didn't have a series where they went over 5 games. So kind of just having the depth in that team and then kind of being able to have a easier road to the playoffs made it so that when they were facing the Mavericks, they had way better consistency. And also the Mavs kind of were just tired. They had a hard Minnesota series. Just getting past the West, it's obviously deeper than the East. So I think that between the fact that the Celtics were deeper and just the better team, I think that overall, the Celtics kind of just dominated the series, and it showed by the fact that they won 5 games.
I mean, just watching these games, you can tell that the Celtics just had more power. They had more power in every game. They just over-dominated, like we've been saying. And it's just so impressive that they were able to dominate every game, even the ones that they lost, or the one that they lost, excuse me. They didn't look like a bad team, I don't think. Even the score might not have proved that they were the better team, but in the whole series, I thought they were the over-dominating team, the better team, power team, whatever, right?
Yeah, no, they really just dominated. I will say this, I think the Dallas Mavericks really got hurt, not only because of how good the Celtics were, but how much Luka was kind of failing these playoffs. His scoring ability was phenomenal, but if you watch the games, you see how he dealt with the refs. In a lot of serious situations, he was just messing up. And Game 5, before they lost, I remember him getting ejected for a technical in the last 4 minutes of the game. When they need him most, he started complaining, lost his cool, lost his temper, which he shouldn't do, and lost them that game. That game could have been a real changer, and they could have, gone back to Game 6 at home, had a good series after that. It was just...
I feel like failing is a little bit of an overstatement, if I can chime in. Luka is the best player on their team, obviously, and he didn't have that much help in the playoffs. Obviously, Kyrie and Daniel Gafford, but for the most part, he was doing a lot of the scoring by himself. So he's not the greatest defensive player, and he even acknowledges that. But offensively, he was averaging 30 points per game over the playoffs, and he was consistently their best player. So being double teamed kind of leads to worse performances, especially if you have nobody else that can kind of help you out. Kyrie had less than 8 points in the first game, so it's kind of hard when you're doing it all by yourself and can't really don't really have any, especially because in the Western Conference Series, I feel like Daniel Gafford was in play a lot more than in the finals. Like, they kind of just took him out of like the pick and roll situations. And in general, like, Daniel Gafford was way more useless, I'd say, in the finals than any of the other series. So I think that, like, kind of going in on Luka is like a little bit of an overstatement, just because he did help so much offensively, and he can't do it all. He's not Superman.
I just wish he was less lazy. That's my biggest complaint.
Okay.
If he cared a little bit more, I think it would have honestly made a difference in the series.
Okay.
Well,
Agree to disagree.
While that was a super exciting championship, I think there's an even more exciting championship that happened this summer, the NHL Finals. The Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers, which everyone thought would be a sweep once games 1, 2, and 3 happened, and then it was almost a reverse sweep. I think it was the most entertaining NHL championship in recent years and past years, whatever. Andrew, what do you think about this whole Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, so in general, the Stanley Cup Finals were the most exciting finals I've ever watched in probably my lifetime. Between the fact that like we had like you said, kind of a sweep almost, and then a reverse sweep almost happened. Going down to Game 7, I'm a Panthers fan. I know you're a Panthers fan. It was definitely a scary sight to see, because going into Game 7, Games 4, 5, and 6, it felt like the Oilers had all the momentum. It felt like they were getting off to hot starts. They were scoring the first goal and then just dominating us. I think they outscored us by like maybe 15 or 16 goals in 3 games, which is kind of insane to think about, especially with how we started. It was kind of like scary going into Game 7, but the fact that we were able to get out to a good start in Game 7 and score the opening goal was kind of clutch for us, because the fact that the Oilers were getting out to hot starts, they were kind of dominating us in the first period, and then we couldn't really kind of pull it together in the second and third periods. It was kind of like just a road for disaster in the games 4, 5, and 6, but being able to score early in Game 7 kind of put it all together.
Right. I mean, you look at the teams, and they're pretty even. I think it's the most even 2 teams we've seen in a long time. You have forwards on both sides with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and then Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk. There's a list on both teams, and you have 2 defensive teams. So it was set to be an exciting finals, but I don't think anybody could have expected it would be like this. I mean, you have star players from this, in my opinion, from this series would be Sam Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, Alexander Barkov, Connor McDavid on the other side. Stuart Skinner was stellar, and I didn't expect that.
In Games 4, 5, and 6.
In Games 4, 5,
and 7.
Yeah, and I mean, we can have a whole discourse on Game 7 alone.
Yeah.
That was the most entertaining game I've seen in so long.
Some of the craziest saves, some of the best shots of the playoffs. It was actually one of the craziest games I've ever seen. I mean, it only ended 2-1, which is kind of funny.
Which is crazy, and I think one of the most impressive things I've ever seen as a hockey fan, as a sports watcher, whatever, was the save that Dmitry Kulikov made in the net that led to Sam Reinhart's goal. I have never seen anything like that happen, especially in a Game 7 Stanley Cup final game. It changed the entire momentum of the game because, I mean, it led to the Stanley Cup winning goal, but I think it was the most impressive thing. What do you think was the most important moment from the Stanley Cup final that led to the win?
So like I mentioned earlier, kind of the opening goal I thought was the most important thing in that Stanley Cup final, because kind of in Games 1 through 3, we got out to like hot starts, but also like we dominated those games, it felt like. So just between like time of possession, like kind of offensive zone time, every kind of stat we dominated. So it didn't feel like that was going to be the case going into Game 7, especially with how Games 4, 5, and 6 planned out. But going into Game 7 and then having a hot start, going on the power play within like the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game, and then ending that power play, it felt a little bit scary because we had a stat, or the Panthers did, that
we
did. We had a stat where we were 1 for 31 on the power play leading into that game, which is like kind of always scary, because if a power play is supposed to be hitting at like maybe a 20% rate, if it's hitting at a 3% rate, there's something going wrong there. And like the fact that we were able to not convert, but then immediately after go into like have a tip in goal, like just getting a shot on the net, was the most important thing, because if we got out to a slow start, I think that we would have lost that game.
I agree 100%. I think that would have been what ended the series. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment. Stay tuned though, because we're going to be talking about a certain NHL team that you might have already heard about in the next one.
Jack, buddy, why are you here?
I don't really understand why I'm here. I got called a delusional fan. I just don't understand why I'm delusional if I think Kirk Cousins had the best mustache in the league.
Well, Jack, buddy, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I don't think anybody looks cool in handlebars.
But they're back, man. They're back.
They're not. They're not. Sometimes you just got to face the hard truth. It's right there in front of you. all these people, they're calling you delusional, but sometimes you got to worry about, am I projecting? Is it me? And in this
Let me
case,
tell you something, bud. It could never be me. Anything I say is factual and truth, and that's why the Vikings are going 16-1 this year.
organization, you have to look at your roster and say, I've had Kirk O'Duggins for 6 years. Maybe it's time to move on.
There is no moving on from Perk Thuggins and Justin Jefferson.
Do you think that maybe this all started just because of a little disappointment?
Nothing has started. This is how I live, and I am not delusional.
Welcome back. I'm here with Brianna St and Katie Christianson to talk about an NHL team that we might have just talked about. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I love the Panthers,
Yes.
so I'm very excited to be here today.
These are the biggest Panthers fans I know, I'd say. Fort Lauderdale and Palm Bay, Florida, you know.
Yes. Thanks for
certified.
dropping where
You
I
have
live
to.
on the internet,
There
but
you
I
go.
appreciate
There you
it.
go. But I mean, home of Florida Panthers fans,
Yes.
right? Oh yeah.
We're
So
Florida girls for sure.
absolutely. So how did you guys become fans of the Florida Panthers?
I became a fan because of this lovely lady right here. I did not know hockey existed for a hot minute. Well, I knew it existed, but I wasn't a fan. I was very into football and baseball, and that's it. But, going to hockey games, because I went to Solar Bears games, and watching hockey is just life-changing. It was life-changing. And seeing the Panthers play, especially, I did become a fan before they went into the Stanley Cup.
bandwagon.
I'm not a bandwagon. So I was able to see this amazing season. I'm very happy I did as a first-time fan. And the Panthers are so welcoming, too. So thanks for having me.
On behalf of the Florida Panthers, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
Katie, how did you become a fan of the Florida Panthers?
Actually, it started in high school. A lot of my friends had those nice season tickets, and I always just watched football and baseball as well. Those were my two sports because that's what my family watched. But I got introduced to the Panthers, and the energy is unmatched.
Insane.
Nothing compares to that.
I mean, unbiasedly, I always talk about an elevator pitch for a team. I think the Florida Panthers are the most exciting hockey team to watch. And I swear that is so unbiasedly. But you have excitement on all ends. You have gritty players like Matthew Tkachuk, Ryan Lomberg, who's not on the team anymore, but he made it super fun. Nick Cousins, you have these players that are super gritty, super fun to watch. And then you have such talent in Alexander Barkov, Sergei Bobrovsky, who is one of the best goaltenders of all time. I mean, if you guys had some players you thought stood out in your eyes,
That's my player.
Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah, Bob, he's the man, bro. He is the man. He had, in the first game of the series, he had 32 saves. 32! I just don't know how he does. I really don't. And that's even one of the saves he had was when he dropped his stick and stretched and still did it. I just couldn't imagine, especially being on skates and I just couldn't.
He's so
good for
consistent.
him. Good for
He's
him.
so
He's very consistent.
I wish he did get MVP, but
He's fine.
yeah,
he'll
get it eventually because he deserves it. I think he does deserve it.
He had a rocky start to joining the Panthers. A lot of people didn't think he deserved his contract, didn't deserve to be there because he wasn't producing like people thought he would. But I think he's proven himself now. Now he's a Stanley Cup champ.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, you can't really say much anymore, but I think he's really proven himself.
He did get pulled for a little bit in some of the games, but I really think it worked out. Obviously, they won. So
Everybody
yeah.
has a fluky moment.
Yeah.
And Bob can have
Yeah.
a fluky moment.
Yeah.
It was 6 minutes in, I think, to period 2. I remember everyone being it was just happening. He just let out too many. But that was the only time that I really was this performance isn't correct. But
Yeah,
He
he's my
still didn't-
favorite.
He still didn't let it mess with him though, because
No,
he
he
came out
locked
last game was
in.
stellar. So I mean, you give up 8 goals.
they're called the comeback cats for a reason.
Absolutely.
they
absolutely.
always come back.
They always do. No fear here.
Yeah.
Katie, what player stands out in your mind?
I love Matthew Tkachuk. I love that man. He's aggressive. The physicality is just unmatched. He's elevated in every part of the sport. He really gets his team together, and the assists, the goals, he does it. He does it, not like a lot of other players I've seen out there.
His one save too.
Oh,
Crazy.
beautiful.
When the Panthers got him from Calgary, it rocked the NHL. Quite frankly, they traded Jonathan Huberdeau for him, which
And Uyghur.
and
that was hard
And
for me.
fans were devastated. They were like, no one's gonna match Huberdeau. Who cares? It's Matthew Tkachuk. No one's gonna match him. And I think he has finally silenced all of that. I think he did it his first season here.
Yeah.
But finally, like, I don't know, he's Stanley Cup
He's had his
champ, but
moment, yeah.
He's had his moment, and he's just proven that he is a Florida Panther, like,
Exactly. It's in his blood.
Yeah. It's in his blood.
in his blood.
And I mean, hockey's in his blood. So, like,
Yeah.
how can
Exactly.
you not be, like,
How
the
can you not
best?
love him? Yeah.
And he's just, like, people call him a rat. Maybe he is, but, like.
I mean, you're not a
It's
Caps
hockey.
player if you're not
It's
a rat.
hockey.
He's
It's
a
hockey.
victory baby, victory rat.
He's also just, like, the best teammate. Like, we've all seen that, the way he loves Alexander Barkov.
Yes, I was gonna say the duo, like, they are such good, like, the way they excel the team by just being great leaders is so insane to see, because the way they've led this team throughout this series was insane.
Especially, like, Alexander Barkov is someone that's more reserved. Like, he keeps to himself. He's quiet.
But he's still a good leader.
And he is, like, I think he's one of the best captains in the NHL.
I agree.
But he does that quietly. And then he has Matthew Tkachuk, who everybody knows
Is
he's
not
not
quiet.
quiet.
Yeah.
And he has that A, and he is just such an impressive leader because he supports Sparky through everything.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, if they have to go talk to a ref, yeah, sure, Barky will go up and, like, complain about something. Matthew will come up,
And
like, no,
yeah.
you're wrong. And I think it's great. I mean,
It's
You need
honestly
the
the perfect
contrast.
duo. Yeah.
You need the contrast.
Exactly.
And it just shows, you know, just how important it is. Just, you know, they won. And honestly, it was so emotional this entire season, especially after being so close last season
Yeah.
and just to
And
Vegas.
That was probably rough for them, and the way they came back and they showed that they can do it, and they are Stanley Cup champions. Like, they deserved it last year, but obviously it didn't work out. But this year they proved themselves, and that's why I think they're the best team in the
They
NHL.
knew what to expect. They knew what
did.
to expect, and they
Yeah.
came back and they showed that they were ready for it.
because not to talk about last year since it was so disappointing to all, but, like, they just snuck into the playoffs, and they were not supposed to go that far. Nobody thought they were going to go that far, and they did. They got really wiped the floor with them, but I mean, it gave them the practice they needed. They had never been that far.
They just
ever.
needed to see it.
They got
need-
locked into a mindset, and they wanted it. They wanted it bad, and obviously it worked. Now they have it.
Now they have it. I mean, even last year's playoffs, like, they dominated every other series
Yeah.
except for Stanley Cup final. You think about Carolina last year. They swept them. Nobody
Yeah.
and as soon as people found out that the Panthers would be playing Carolina last year, everybody was like, "Oh, we're cooked, we're done." But I mean, they swept and the quadruple overtime. Like, how can we not talk
my
about
God.
that?
That was insane.
Like, literally I was up until 2 a.m. watching this game.
Everyone was.
And everybody just wanted to go to sleep. I remember they, like, showed, like, crowd reactions, and everyone was, like,
Tired.
asleep.
They're
and,
just
like,
done.
I would have been on the edge of my seat, just like, I need to see, something needs to go on.
It was, I mean, like, they now, like, I know it's quadruple overtime. They also hold, like, the most shootout rounds in history. They have, like, 28 shootout rounds, which that went until, like, midnight, but super exciting.
No, but it always makes the game just better, I think.
I
Like,
just,
at the end of the
any
day, you need
Panthers
games
game
like that.
is just great vibes.
Super, I mean, I
Love the
think
fans too.
Can't complain. The
No.
fans are great. The
the
players are great.
rats,
The
Yeah.
rats, what is better than throwing a rat?
I,
Doing the towel, just
nothing.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have this week for Girls Got Game. Thank you so much to everyone that joined me today, and stay tuned for next week when we have a new episode of Girls Got Game.